We all thought my grandpa was just losing his mind, you know? He'd spend whole afternoons in the living room, lips inches from the faded rose wallpaper, whispering like it could whisper back. We'd laugh about it at Sunday dinners. "Grandpa's chatting with the plaster again," we'd say, rolling our eyes. After he died last winter, we gathered at the old house to clean it out, a morbid sort of family reunion. That's when we learned he wasn't crazy at all. He wasn't talking to the walls, he was talking to the thing he had sealed inside them 61 years ago. And once we cracked that wall open, the family we knew cracked too. I still hear the drywall crunch, sometimes in my sleep. I still smell the sour ancient air that spilled out, clinging to everything. If you stick around, you'll hear what was in there, why Grandpa really built that extra partition, and how one discovery can rot every single branch of a family tree all at once. Grandpa bought the place back in 1963, a two-story clapboard house just outside Toledo. He and Grandma raised 4 kids there, a bustling, noisy life, but Grandma died young, leaving him with a mortgage and a whole lot of quiet. The house always felt busy, even when no one was talking. Pipes sighed, floorboards flexed, and the fridge motor sounded like distant breathing. He started the wall talking around 1980. Mom said it was grief, just him coping. Dad, ever the pragmatist, said it was whiskey. Us grandkids, we just thought it was Grandpa being theatrical, putting on a show. He'd stand by the chimney breast, tap the plaster gently, and say things like, not yet, or "I'll bring you coffee tomorrow." We chalked it up to quirky loneliness, a harmless eccentricity.
"I'm not the one who's lost," he muttered.
We assumed he meant us, lost in our modern lives. His will was unusual. It specifically asked that we keep the house in the family or sell it whole. No demolition. Lawyers just shrugged. Families usually fight over money, not plaster, right? My cousin Dean and I drew cleanup duty. Someone had to do it. Our first day, we pried up the living room carpet, dusty and worn. Underneath, the floorboards were scarred by a perfect rectangle of newer wood. Someone had cut, then meticulously replaced, a section about 6 feet long. Dean joked, "Buried treasure," but the laugh felt wrong, hollow. Upstairs, we found a drawer full of coffee coupons dated 1981, hundreds of them unused. And here's the kicker. Grandpa brewed tea, always, never coffee. Another oddity. The bedroom wall shared with the chimney was noticeably colder than the others, even with the heat cranked high. We nearly stopped right there, overwhelmed by the strangeness. But grief needs busy hands, so we kept sorting dishes and stacking photo albums, trying to ignore the growing unease. Night 3, Dean stayed over. Around 2 a.m., I heard a wet ripping sound like tape slowly, agonizingly pulled off cardboard. I sat bolt upright. The wallpaper in the hall had split shoulder high, a perfect vertical slit about 2 inches long. There was no moisture, no wind, nothing to explain it. It just split. Dean wanted to spackle and paint, to just make it go away, but something felt profoundly disrespectful about patching what Grandpa had tended, what he'd whispered to. Instead, we photographed it, posted it to the family chat. Mom typed, "House is old, go to bed." Then Aunt Rita typed, "Don't open walls." And then, almost immediately, she deleted the message. But I saw the notification, didn't I? I asked her about it the next morning. She just hung up on me cold and fast, leaving me with a knot in my stomach. While looking for more wallpaper matches, a fool's errand it turned out, I emptied a box of Grandpa's old tax folders. Buried between 1980 and 1982 receipts, almost every January entry had a coffee shop logo stamped across the back. Beans and Bells, a local diner that closed in '85. The stamp read, "Paid $1 good for bearer." It hit me then. He wasn't buying coffee for himself, he was delivering it. To whom? The sheer volume of coupons felt like proof of a meticulous, grim routine, like feeding a pet that never, ever left the house. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Dean borrowed a stud finder, a serious one. He ran it across the cold wall. The device lit up 6 feet high, then again near the base, but the middle section stayed stubbornly blank, hollow. He knocked on it. The echo was dull, muffled, yet something tiny shifted inside, a faint pebble on metal tick. My stomach turned, a cold dread coiling within me. Grandpa's voice echoed in my memory, chillingly clear. "Tomorrow, I'll bring you coffee." We agreed to wait until morning to cut, to give the rest of the family a chance to weigh in, to understand. That night, I slept on the couch, or tried to. I woke to the sound of soft scraping inside the wall. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails counting seconds. I pressed my ear to the rose paper. The scraping stopped. A whisper, papery thin, said, "Black, no sugar." I didn't dream it. My phone, which I'd started recording with out of some primal fear, had 33 seconds of audio. At second 19, the waveform spiked. We called a family vote, a desperate, tense meeting. Mom begged us to board up the house and walk away, her voice cracking with fear. Some doors stay shut for a reason. But Uncle Ray, the eldest, his face etched with a grim determination, said Dad would have wanted answers no matter how ugly. Majority rules, I guess. Dean took a drywall saw, his hand shaking, and sliced the seam where the stud finder had gone blank. The blade hit resistance. Layers of newspaper from 1981, then a sheet of aluminum, then black tar paper that smelled like burnt rubber, thick and suffocating. Behind it, absolute darkness. We shone a flashlight into the void. A narrow shaft, framed by rough chimney brick, stretched downward, just wide enough for a body. On a small makeshift ledge sat a tin coffee cup, bone white inside. Then something moved below, a subtle shift of weight, a rustle. Dean dropped the light. It clanged off metal rungs, homemade ladder bolts welded to the brick. The sound that floated up from the darkness was part moan, part yawn, something ancient and deeply unsettling. I backed away, my heart hammering. The house suddenly smelled of old percolator coffee and something else, something spoiled and rotten. We didn't go down that day. No way. Instead, we sealed the hole temporarily and drove straight to the county records office. In 1963, Grandpa had filed a minor addition permit, no blueprints required, for a small pantry extension. Public Works had nothing else, but the librarian, a kindly woman with sharp eyes, found a single police report from October 1981. Missing, James P. Kellen, age 29, last seen Beans and Bell's Diner. Employee reported he left with unknown older man. The investigating officer? Grandpa's next-door neighbor. The case went cold in 3 weeks. I sat in the library restroom and puked violently. The age matched, the diner matched, the year matched. We went home shaking, the horror tightening its grip. Dean refused to involve cops until we knew more. "What if we're wrong?" he kept saying, his voice thin with terror. But fear has a way of demanding proof, doesn't it? We returned with respirators, rope, and a camera, grimly determined. We cut lower this time, exposing the ladder bolts clearly, expertly welded to the brick. I descended first, my breath catching in my throat. The shaft dropped about 8 feet, opening into a small, cramped crawl space, roughly the length of the living room. The air was warm, humid, stinking of coffee grounds and human waste, a truly sickening combination. In the far corner, a figure lay beneath a tarp. I spoke before thinking, before I could stop myself. "James?" The tarp moved, slowly. A hand emerged, gray, papery skin, cracked nails, fingers long and thin as twigs. It tugged the tarp down, revealing a face half light, half shadow, cheekbones sharp, eyes filmed white, a matted beard reaching to the chest. He whispered, his voice a raspy puff of air. "Told you. Tomorrow." I scrambled up the ladder, adrenaline coursing through me, kicked the panel shut, and wedged a chair under the living room doorknob, just like in the movies. Dean filmed the whole thing, his camera shaking so hard the footage is mostly blur, but you can hear my grandpa's name rasped over and over from behind that wall. Arthur. Arthur. Police arrived within minutes of our frantic 911 call. James Kellen was alive, malnourished, severely dehydrated, but coherent. He'd spent 42 years inside a brick womb, fed drip coffee and table scraps through a dumbwaiter hatch Grandpa had ingeniously rigged behind the pantry. Medics said the diet should have killed him. Instead, his body adapted, kidneys barely functioning, his mind eroded to childlike loops.
Arthur got his coupons.
News outlets swarmed, a feeding frenzy. They called Grandpa the coffee jailer. The family name detonated, shattering into a million pieces. Uncle Ray immediately hired lawyers trying to salvage something. Rita refused interviews, sold her house, and moved states, disappearing from our lives. Mom took pills, blaming herself for never questioning the wall, for dismissing Grandpa's whispers. Dean and I were branded the spelunkers, as if we'd done the imprisoning, as if we were the monsters. The house is evidence now, sealed under yellow tape while prosecutors decide how much of Grandpa's estate will settle civil suits.
Black coffee, no sugar.
If this story rattled you, tap the like button. Gently, please. Comments are open. What would you have done the moment you heard scraping inside your wall? And if you want more tales that prove real-life best fiction for horror, stories that stick with you, then subscribe. The next one's already brewing. Grandpa died believing he kept the world safe from something, maybe from James, maybe from himself, maybe from a truth too terrible to face. We thought he lost his mind, that he was just a crazy old man, but he kept it tethered to a single terrible purpose: feed the secret, keep the wall intact. Once we cracked that purpose open, the family split along the fault lines of shame and blame, and we haven't been whole since. Some nights I replay the audio file. 33 seconds, a whisper, a clang. I don't laugh at old folks talking to walls anymore. Sometimes the walls answer, and sometimes what answers has your grandpa's voice, begging for tomorrow, begging for coffee, black, no sugar, while the wallpaper holds its breath. I'll bring you coffee tomorrow.